Hello. Thank you so much for watching the film that all of us worked on and supported in different ways. We thought we would have a short post-film panel discussion, although because we can't be there in person and everyone is all spread out and watching virtually, we decided to record this for you instead. My name is Koni Benson. I am a historian and an organizer and an educator at the University of the Western Cape in South Africa, and I'm a member of the African Water Commons Collective. My parents are both from Cape Town, and I was born and grew up in Vancouver in Canada. And so the links this evening or this afternoon when you're watching the film between Canada and South Africa and this film are really special. I've been back in Cape Town for the last 20 years and have been lucky to work with some of the most exciting frontline activists in the city, including FaezaMeyer. And our work has been supported through the Blue Planet Project. And that's why we've invited Marcela Olivera and Meera Karunananthan to come and speak with us about the long history that we've had working with the Blue Planet Project and their activist organizing and research support work that's helped our water struggles in South Africa. So maybe I can just ask each person to introduce themselves, starting with Faeza, then Marcela, then Meera.
Thank you, Koni, and good evening, everyone, or good afternoon, or good morning, wherever you are. Thank you for watching the film. My name is Faeza, surname is Meyer, and I am in the Western Cape. I was born in Cape Town, raised in Cape Town, where the film was made. It's been an honor to be part of that film, part of a tool that something that we consider a tool that will build the struggle. I'm a member of the African Water Commons Collective, also a member of the African Water Justice Network, and we are part of the People's Water Forum. So thank you very much, and I look forward to having this conversation.
Thank you.
Thank you, Koni and Faeza and Meera. I'm very happy to be here and hopefully to reach out to other people that watched the movie this evening. My name is Marcela Olivera. I am based in Cochabamba, Bolivia, and I work in an organization that first started in Canada. It's called the Blue Planet Project, but then spread out, and we work in many other countries and regions now. I also coordinate as part of my work at the Blue Planet Project. I coordinate an Inter-American Water Justice Network called Red Vida, and also I sit in something that we call the Platform for Community Partnerships of the Americas, which is a network also of organizations in the region that are promoting public partnerships or community partnerships among water utilities based in solidarity and horizontality. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Meera Karunananthan. I'm based in Ottawa on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe First Nation. And it's such a delight. It's so thrilling to be able to join you as viewers of the film. I remember, for years when this film started out just as an idea, and then all of the work that Faeza and Koni and others put into making this film. So it's very exciting to be in this place where we can actually discuss the film and talk to audiences who are watching the film and engaging with the film. I'm with the Blue Planet Project. I'm currently on the board of the Blue Planet Project. I started out when you started making this film, or we started talking about the film, maybe I was in the role that Marcela now plays, and with the Blue Planet Project. And now I'm currently, I volunteer at the Blue Planet Project, and I, in my day job, I also teach at Carlton University in the Department of Geography and Environmental Studies.
Great, thank you so much. So I'm going to ask one question or so to each person on our panel. And I think a lot of the connections between the Blue Planet Project and the Africa Water Justice Network and the water struggles in Cape Town will come to light. I'm also hoping that it will give people ideas for how to get involved and stay in touch in the future. So Faeza, I just wanted to ask you, we finished making the film about a year ago. I mean, there was a lot of editing and things like that, but the actual filming ended at the end of 2023. And I'm just wondering if you would like to tell us a little bit about how the film screenings and the film itself has been part of or contributed to some of the organizing since finishing the production.
Thank you, Koni. I think it's important to say that, or to start off, to say that it is really playing the role that we intended the film to play. It's playing the role of mobilizing communities. We have people in the audience sitting that has never thought about day zero, the impacts that it still has on the city, and that it wasn't really day zero, was more of a scare tactic. So many young people are joining the struggle because of this film. I think since the beginning of the film, I can say with confidence that we've attracted more young people, students, activists in communities. Um, there's youth organizations forming through this film, because of this film, because people are just seeing the crisis now. I think what's brilliant about the film is that it don't just tell one story, it tells the story of the entire crisis from different angles, from an angle of quality, access, it just having to protect the wetlands and our farms and where we grow our foods. So what the film has also done in a very brilliant way is to connect the dots. So we've always been activists in the city of Cape Town, fighting for water justice, but we also all been fighting from our different corners, trying to do what we can. And I think the film has done amazingly brought different groups together to start strategizing around how can we move forward. And I can actually feel the level that we've I think we've gone up a little. The campaign itself has grown. There is we're on a different level now. We've been seen, we're being heard. There's requests for the film to play. People see it as a tool. So honestly, I have to say it's inspiring going to communities and listening to them say, we didn't know this crisis exists. All we knew is that we're struggling and there was nothing that we could do. And so people are ready to get organized. And for us, that's the main aim. Thank you.
Thank you. I mean, some of our inspiration has been what we've learned through the international water justice over the years. When Faeza and I first met, I don't think either of us would have considered ourselves water activists or water researchers. And with the water crisis, often you get a sense that if you don't know science and you're not a scientist or you don't understand finance, then it's very intimidating. But there was a need. We were working together on housing issues. And what we started seeing was these blue top water management devices being implemented in homes. And we started a campaign against implementing those meters, which would cut people off. And a lot of that was through the support of Meera, who was in Cape Town at the time and had been part as a water researcher and an activist for a very long time, who had insight and information into where these devices were coming from, the international kind of corporate links, the policy links, and we started asking people, is this legal? What can we do? And so from that initial campaign, we eventually formed the African Water Commons Collective. But had we not had that support of the Blue Planet Project that gave us information, gave us confidence, gave us examples of other places where people had organized, and we started to ask and learn about past organizing that had been on a serious lull for about a decade before we started organizing in the city, we wouldn't have known. And so I want to turn to you, Marcela, and hear a little bit more about what the Blue Planet Project does, and the importance of regional and global network building, because that's how we came in touch with the Blue Planet, was through the connections of this translocal solidarity. So Marcela.
Well, I perhaps could start saying a little bit about my personal journey on how I became a water activist or water organizer. So we had I live in a town where 25 years ago, um, the World Bank and the IMF tried to privatize our water system. And it was not just our water system, but they also introduced legislation in order to commodify water. And 25 years ago, we rose up and perhaps it's a story that some people have heard about. And we said, no, we're not going to allow that to happen. And I could say we won that battle against privatization because the privatization was reverted and the law was changed. But, I say won because, 25 years later, I'm still, involved on water struggles because it's not over. And, there are always these, when Cochabamba happened, we realized that what we were living, it was not an isolated case, that many people in other parts of the world were dealing with the same things, people in Peru, people in even in, in the global north, in England, they were fighting also water meters. And then we heard about the struggle in South Africa and the anti-privatization movement that was very, very strong, I could say, during the early to 20, how do I say that? In the early, in the early
2000s.
Early
2000s.
2000s, yeah.
Exactly. So, we learned that, and then we started to think, how can we connect our struggles? How can we, pass not just inspiration to the people in Peru and South Africa, but also how can we fight against this common enemy? And that's when we came with the idea of networks, right? In 2003, the Inter-American Water Justice Network in the Americas was born. It followed up with other regional networks in Europe and Africa now, and then we all got together also in what we are calling now the People's Water Forum, which is this network of networks. And there we learn, we're not just sharing our problems and our and what we're living through in terms of water, but we are also sharing alternatives, which is very important. Because something that I've learned, and this was a very tough lesson from the Cochabamba water struggle, is that it's not just enough to oppose to something, then we have to have an alternative and we have to say yes to something. So we're in at this point, I think the water movement around the world is very well organized. And we're, um, um, overcoming cultural differences, even time differences in some cases, and language barriers. And we're starting to talk to each other more than 20 years now. and we are still, you know, in that sense, communicating with each other, seeing each other, and building this movement. Again, so not just opposed to privatization of water, but also to build and to share about the alternatives that we are creating in our towns, in our countries, in our regions.
Thank you. Thank you, Marcela. Yeah, the Cochabamba water wars are something we all look to for inspiration. And to learn that it was people on the ground doing it with very little resources, without the need of big organizations coming with the ideas, has really inspired us with the African Water Commons Collective. We organize self-organized water action committees because we know that there's a role for everyone to play. But we also really rely on a lot of information that we don't have access to. And it was through Meera, your research, where you pointed out the ways in which a lot of the policies in South Africa were coming from these supposed think tanks, with people sitting on them from Coca-Cola and Nestle and whatnot, writing water policy across the global south, that really alerted us to some of the things that we needed to be looking out for. So Meera, could you tell us a bit about your research, and the research you do in South Africa? Because we've really benefited from your feedback, and your insight over the years.
Sure. Thank you, Koni. I think that's a very generous account of our history of working together. I do want to say, in terms of situating my own trajectory, that when I, became involved as an activist in the early 2000s, I also read about South Africa and I read about Cochabamba, and those were my guiding lights, and that's what inspired me and drew me to the Blue Planet Project, and then the work that I've been doing since. So really, that's where I learned. Water gave me a lens through which to understand bigger global issues around, the impacts of privatization and free trade agreements that we were fighting at the time, and how they would impact people in our everyday lives, right? And I think that's been, as much as I've worked a lot on global policy and looking at sort of what's happening at the UN, and looking at what, Koni's talking about, which at the time I was doing research on these global policy consortiums that were being set up by, the World Bank, by the World Economic Forum, bringing together corporations and governments to draft water policy. And in fact, South Africa was kind of pioneering some of that. The South African government, in fact, was sort of leading some of that, right? And they had invited this consortium called the 2030 Water Resources Group to engage in water policy in South Africa. And so we were looking at the impacts of that, and seeing how that then trickled down to national policy and then municipal policy, and led to things like these metering devices where, so you had, Coca-Cola and Pepsi and Rio Tinto and SAB Miller sitting in this policymaking group with governments, thinking about what kinds of water policies we should have in any, and mostly targeting countries in the global south. So of course, they're going to come up with ideas like, we don't have enough water, so let's cut people off through these meters who are living in shacks, so that, we have enough water for business, right? So, but what was also really important, I think, in the film is it shows us, and what I learned from, working with Marcela and Faeza and others, is that it shows us what environmental activism and organizing looks like, right? That it is, when Koni, you were talking about, engaging in housing issues. Well, those intersections are important, right? It shows us the powerful outcomes and what happens when people organize, who are organizing around their everyday life. That it isn't the environment as something out there that we should come in as saviors to save the environment, but we are the environment. And when we organize around water, we're organizing around building better worlds, better lives for ourselves and for our children and our children's children, right? That it's about housing and food and even about beautiful things, right? Like having the nice things that we want, having healthy lives, and not just about saving something that's out there.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's something that Faeza and I are constantly having conversations with people about that. If you're a housing activist or you're concerned with food or with safety or with gender-based violence or with repression of certain religious and spiritual practices, that you are a water activist, that water is intersectional in that way. And so we learned a lot making the film about the other organizations, because water is very divide and rule, as you can see in the film. And we hope that by having a kind of bird's eye view of how all the different bodies of water are connected, and how 3 examples of organizations that are concerned with Cape Town's water are responding, it would raise a lot of questions, both about Cape Town, but also about global water politics, because Cape Town was supposedly the first city to almost run out of water in a long list of cities that will be next. And it will come back to us too, because the solutions that are on the table at the moment, a lot of them are not very sustainable. So before we wrap up, I'm going to give the last word to Faeza, and thought maybe you could tell us about updates in terms of the organizing that have happened since the end of what people see in the film.
So at the end of the film, people would see that we've handed some kind of memorandum with 10 demands to the city of Cape Town, to the mayor, not to himself, he didn't pitch. But yeah, so they responded to us. Took a while for them to respond. And when they responded, we felt it was very copy and paste. It was very disconnected from your body. It was really saying that we're sorry, but you must pay for the water um, that you use, or the water that you get, irrespective of the bad infrastructure, whether the water reaches people's homes, irrespective of the fact that people are unemployed, irrespective of the overcrowded conditions that we're living, and it goes on. And so what we've done, or what we are busy doing, is we are trying to respond from the ground up. And so we've got water action committees in various communities, and we're trying to get other organizations involved as well. But we are busy doing our own research. The city is saying it's simply not true. You know, they are making us out to be liars. They are saying you're exaggerating about these things. They are saying there's relief in terms of the indigent grant for people who cannot afford it. The mayor on the film says something like, you must at least pay something. But he knows very well that if you owe the city of Cape Town 400 rand and you get to them with a 300 rand, they will not accept it. They want what they want. So the mayor is not being truthful. We've been party to their public participation processes, because they've been asking to outsource. It started out with one. You will hear in the film as well, the mayor talking about the new 4 water system, which is built within the Cape Flats, and it's going to clean the sewage water and distribute it to people to drink. But we are very afraid of what's happening, because there hasn't been enough research. We've attended all the so-called public participation processes, which is all online, and so most people are not able to attend these processes. And so it's kind of a secret meeting of ward councillors and aldermen and politicians and business people. And I swear the last time we were there was like 5 people or maybe 6 of the public, and that was 3 of the AWCC members. So the public isn't there. They're going ahead. 3.3 billion, if I'm correct, Koni, I'm not. 3.3 billion, yes, I think, is what they're going to spend on this thing. And they're trying to convince us that the private company is the one taking the risk. We don't have to worry, but we know the risks around, and we know this because of, you know, the relationship and the work that we've done together, Comrade Meera and Marcela with the Blue Planet Project, that we can always lean on you to say, you know, there's this new thing, we don't really understand it, we're not water experts, and you always come back and make the links for us, and we're always able to respond sufficiently, and we're always able to respond with confidence because we trust the information. I think we at the point where the the campaign for Water for Life is going to be the vehicle that brings together water justice activists, because the things that we are responding to is key demands that we've had many demands over the years, and in the recent period we've zoomed into a few demands to see, you know, what are the things that we can actually take up. And so, as an example, the free basic water, the amount of water, the city claims that they are the most generous in the country, but if they are the most generous in the country, then I'm really very concerned about the rest of the country, because from where I sit and the communities that I work with, um, this is disastrous. There's the country's free, the city's free basic water amount is 200 liters of water, and that 200 liters of water easily goes to a household of 20 to 30 people a day, and is expected that we must live with that. So the law doesn't work for the people, then the law needs to change. And we've been able to consciously and confidently respond to these with the support from the Blue Planet Project. I think only what we don't say is that the Blue Planet Project has been the consistent organization within that has been there to support the AWCC since the beginning, and has not stopped up until now in any way. I mean, many different ways, has been a kind of big sister that we've been leaning on and taking us. And the Blue Planet Project has taken us places, in terms of, I mean, I've personally been to Colombia and have been able to see, you know, the water systems that communities have set up, and that's very inspiring. We have many informal communities that were set up after lockdown, during the lockdown, you know, for COVID, where people occupied land, and those people are sitting on land where they are called illegal occupiers, and they are getting no support. I think it's amazing that we can start thinking about how communities can set up their own water systems and how they can run their own water systems, because what we need is public partnership, not the public private partnerships that the governments wants us to go with. Yeah. Thank you, Koni. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
everyone.
Thank you. I mean, I think that for people who want to get more involved, please go to the Blue Planet Project's website. Please go to the African Water Commons Collective website. You can also go to the film's website, and that will be an easy way to get in touch with any of us. Meera takes on students at Carlton. Blue Planet Project has room for volunteers. When we say support, it's often not monetary support that helps, but it's support with information and in many forms of solidarity, creative forms like filmmaking, research. We have a whole wish list of what our campaign in Cape Town needs, because a lot of how we've pieced this together, none of us do this. All of us do this on a voluntary base, but we piece it together through many hands making light work. So we welcome anyone who's interested. And if you want to follow what's going on our website, we've also posted our latest response to the 4A New Water Scheme that Faeza is talking about. And that's going to be an ongoing struggle in the city of Cape Town. So thank you very much for watching the film, and we hope that you will join us in our struggles for water justice in South Africa, in Canada, and everywhere. Thank you.